Welcome to the 94th episode of the Supernatural Occurrence Studies Podcast.
So damn paranormal.
My name is Jason Knight, host of the show, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Oscar Spector, producer extraordinaire.
You're supposed to tell me to say my own name.
Oh, we did discuss that, didn't we?
On the show. Oscar Spector.
And with me is...
Lexi Raven.
Lexi Raven is in his house.
I know you meant me, but I just gave it to her.
That was really awkward.
I said fuck you.
The hand
that.
motions.
No, you messed up.
I tried to give you your lead in.
No, you fucked up.
Can we edit that?
No.
Should we start again?
No. That's more fun this way.
So yes, Lexi Raven is back in the house. It's been, 6 months?
I mean, she's been in the trunk of my car this whole time.
Awkward. It's...
She just
What did she have to say about that?
Uncomfortable.
Very.
Yeah.
That was creepy.
You stretch your legs out?
Yeah, I'm stretching them now.
Not behind your head. Stop. Okay. She can't. No one could hear her.
I think...
Oh, yeah. I said they've been stuck in that position ever since.
Behind your head?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was in your trunk.
You're going with that still? Okay.
Always.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
I think if you were to actually do that, it might freak out Jay.
I could do one leg.
You have to prove it to me. His car, right.
Yes, we are recording in the garage. The Corvette is behind you. Please, no calisthenics? I don't know.
Calisthenics, yeah.
Is it calisthenics?
That's the old man saying of it.
It's the old man saying no calisthenics by the
No
Corvette.
Pilates
please,
by the...
please.
No Pilates.
Lexi, are you going to be joining us in tonight's topic?
Yes, I can.
You can. Are you
I
sure?
should probably get a mic so you don't need to switch
you
off.
really thought you thought tonight's episode was a relation to a famous band.
Oh my God!
member.
Yes.
I could just play on with that the entire podcast.
No. Feel free to jump on whenever you like. How about that?
I can totally mic her up if you want. I didn't know we wanted to. I have no idea.
I don't know. It's up to you guys. It's up to you guys. We got to keep this a short
I
intro.
have nothing to say.
At least she's honest.
Yeah, she's honest. That's okay. You should just tap me if you want to say something.
Yeah.
Don't slap me.
So then you could learn from tonight's episode. And if you have questions during the episode, ask them. That could work.
Now, who is... everyone knows what this podcast is.
Yes, they know. It's Charles Manson.
Right. So, who is Charles Manson related to?
Okay, I thought he was related to Marilyn Manson.
Or Shirley Manson?
I was informed that he is not. So in case you guys were wondering, he is not.
He is not related to
You are
Marilyn
not
Manson.
alone.
Isn't that the quote from the X-Files? You are not alone. It's the X-Files poster right there.
Yes, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point. Our younger listeners, they might not know who tonight's topic
There are some
is.
younger listeners that think that the world is 2019 years old.
This is true, and flat.
And flat.
At the same time.
At the same time. Or cylindrical.
It could be cylindrical.
Well, that's
Or donut-shaped, Lexi
Ooh,
says.
donuts.
That's right.
getting ready to be plucked by something in space.
Well, I got to say, tonight's episode is my pièce de résistance. I have been working on this thing since December, I think, of 2018.
Yeah.
I hate this episode. It's taken so much of my time, giving me so much anxiety, because it's such a popular topic. He's such a, I hate to say, famous, infamous person.
Yeah, and you get anxiety walking out the front door.
I really do.
So
yes. I had to get it right for the listeners. So what we've done is we've broken the topic of Charles Manson into 3 episodes. This is like a mega episode. Like I said, my piece de
the Meg
resistance.
of podcasts.
The Meg of podcasts. For us, anyway.
Yes.
For us. Up to this point, 94 episodes, this is going to be our biggest episode.
Yes.
And it all ties into the serial killer web that I'm spinning. It's been a while since we touched on this, but Charles Manson is going to tie into the big picture I'm painting.
Yes. It's going to be nice.
Yeah.
It's like we're like a very Doctor Who episode series or something.
So I've never seen it. Explain.
Well, I don't know much of Doctor Who, so those out there like, no, I'm not a Whovian. Quite so. I've only seen
Whovian. I love it.
I've only seen the Eccleston Resurgence, which is the actor who plays Who, And I've seen The Tenant, which is after that. I missed the last two. I saw some of the old guy later on. Doesn't matter. Peter something. But in it, they will have it's seasons, right? And the seasons would be kind of ragtag. Like every episode, it's an episodic show, like different adventure about different things, different points in history.
Right.
But it's they weave in little clues here and there. Maybe sometimes devote an entire episode to a conspiracy revolving whatever the main story of the season or seasons are.
Oh.
And then they will hit you with, this is starting that war because you did all these other things that you didn't see the signs or whatever the hell it is, And I remember that being a thread. And this is kind of how you're weaving it. We have normal episodes. We have episodes that don't seem to be related at all. These serial killers don't seem that related, except for that one, that duo, I forget what it was. And it's, but it's slowly but surely, the signs are going to be there. Yes. And at the end of the season, you're going to see the war or whatever. And well, not the war, but whatever craziness you got.
That's awesome. Well, later on in this intro, it'll be a short intro. I have an interview that I did with our new research assistant, Jessica Celine. Mm-hmm. And one of the questions I asked her, as a professional journalist, as someone who is intimately familiar with in-depth research, she helped with this Charles Manson release. I asked her opinion on this web I'm trying to spin, if there's something there.
Yeah.
And listeners could hear her response to that. This is something. This is something that's big.
Cool.
So
I don't even know what it is, but I'm purposely not wanting to know.
Right.
Like I haven't asked you.
Yeah. No.
And I don't want to ask you.
Right.
So.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited about this episode and the upcoming 2 episodes on Manson. I'm also nervous. I hope I get it right.
Like I said, you're nervous just anytime.
Yeah. So I did have something kind of cool happen to me. I had to spend 2 weeks in New Jersey for work.
Okay, so far not so cool.
Yeah, not too cool. It was rough. It was really rough being away from the family that long. But while I was in New Jersey, one of my coworkers, a good friend of mine, took me to Holstein's restaurant.
Oh, yes.
And Holstein's restaurant is where the final episode of The Sopranos was filmed.
Yep.
Younger listeners might not know what I'm talking about. But that final episode, when the screen went black, right, and everyone went up in arms. What the hell happened to Tony Soprano? Mm-hmm. I got to sit in that booth where all that was filmed when I was in Jersey, and listeners can see pictures from that little outing on our Instagram account.
Oh, you put it on there? Nice.
I did, at Chicago Ghosts on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're hearing all sorts of weird noises in my garage right now.
Are there any places like that, either historical or maybe movie or show related, that you would visit that isn't this one so far?
Oh, God, a lot
of them are fake in movie sets, so you can't see those, but what are the ones that you can see? Which ones would you see? I'll give you one if you want to think of one.
Yeah.
I've always wanted, and this is available for everyone to do it, too, because they have a plaque and footprints on the place, too, where the Archduke Ferdinand got assassinated. That started, for the most part,
we're talking like real events?
World War One. No, I just said real or from movies. I said or.
Oh, God.
I would love to see that. That would be a really heavy place for me, knowing the book, because I read so many books on that fucking place and the whole war. So, it would mean something to me. Movies. I don't know. Have you thought of a movie or something? Not
movie, but you know what I would like to see? I think I would like to see the place where the St. Valentine's Day massacre went down, over by 2122 North Clark Street, the old SMC cartage garage.
I don't get it, but you've been there, haven't you?
I have, but the building's gone, right?
Oh,
it's just
you mean
a field right now.
Would have loved to have seen it in the past.
Yes.
Oh, in that
would
case,
have been
I can
really
go
cool.
crazy then.
That would have been kind of neat.
If you have a mosquito there. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, well, no, if we're talking, and I'm not saying time travel, I'm saying right now if you could go to a place, I wonder where that would be. But I don't know, what would be a cool place?
Wow, you really caught me off guard on that one.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know, I can't think of anything right
It's
now.
my job, man.
I'm so focused on Manson, I can't think of anything else.
I mean, would you go to Sharon Tate's house, old house? I'm sure it's still there. Some rich person. No, really? It's
gone? It was torn down. Yeah.
Wow.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I'm sorry. I just mentioned, because you said Manson, and I just went with it.
God, I don't know. I'd have to get back. I'm sorry. I have to get back to you on that one.
That's okay. It's okay.
You really caught me off on that one.
That's my job.
That's
I've
my
succeeded.
job. I do it well.
I succeeded. I don't know. I'm trying to think of one. And it's hard for me to think of one because I want something that's personal, right? But like, I don't want to say the Empire State Building, right? Because King Kong, Spider-Man, so many things have been in there.
Yeah.
But also it's a landmark. I don't think that counts. It's too broad. Something specific. It's hard to think of something specific.
Really is. Yeah.
Right now. I don't know, like if I know that this house existed. I don't know if it's still there. I wonder if the Texas Chainsaw House is still there. That would be cool to see because that specific view is iconic to that era of horror cinema. That'd be kind of cool to see that.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I like that.
I would like to see that off the Route 66 or whatever it was. Yeah, or I don't know if it was that, but yeah, that would have been cool.
Nice. That's a good call.
Or I don't know. Bates Motel is still a thing? No, that was a set, wasn't it?
That was a set.
Yeah,
and I
fuck.
seen it. I seen it at Universal in California.
Yeah,
That was
doesn't
pretty
count.
creepy.
Yeah.
Maybe revisiting the Amityville house. Would that be? Would that
Still there?
count? It is. Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
it is. We did talk about that. It is still there.
Yes, we did a whole 2 episodes on
Yeah,
that.
I already forgot. I don't know what day of the week this is.
It's Sunday. It's really close to release time. Which
Yeah,
is
release for both
definitely-
our shows time.
Yes. And what's your show again? Oh, sorry, I caught
Thanks.
you as you mid vape.
That's okay, guys. I'm sure they can hear it lightly in the background sometimes. It's another movie podcast, and we're doing Toy Story 4.
Toy Story 4?
The Dead Don't Die, and Pleasantville.
Pleasantville.
Remember
Like-
that movie from the 90s?
Yeah.
Yeah, with Tobey Maguire and Reese Witherspoon.
I love that movie.
Yeah,
that was a great movie.
Yeah, we're doing that as part of a marathon. Pleasantville was part of a marathon.
And you kind of glossed over that middle one there. What's the zombie
The
movie?
Dead Don't Die.
The Dead Don't Die.
Don't Die.
With every cool actor and actress that you haven't heard of in years.
You know what's funny is that
is in that movie.
has a lot of known actors from all generations. You got the Bill Murray, right?
Yeah.
Adam Driver.
Yeah.
And you got the Steve Buscemi, which just falls in between. And you got Danny Glover, which probably has been the Bill Murray camp. And then you go down to, what's that singer we talked about?
Oh, Selena Gomez.
Selena Gomez, the
Yeah,
young crowd. And
Rosie Perez.
Rosie Perez, which is like deep cut to the 80s and 90s too. What's that movie that she's famous? She's famous for a
White
little.
Men Can't Jump.
White Man Can't Jump. Thank you.
Yes.
She has that voice. Anyway,
That
Chloe
horrible New
Savini,
York.
also from the 90s, and Big
Chloe
Love, if
Savini.
you're into that. Tilda Swinton, who is, I think, part of any generation. So yeah, it's everywhere. So the spectrum is everywhere. Tom Waits.
Tom Waits. Love his music.
Yeah.
Do you know Chloe Savini gave a blowjob on film?
Yeah, it's called The Brown Bunny.
The movie is called The Brown Bunny.
Yes.
If anyone wants to see Chloe Savini give a blowjob on camera before she was being almost killed by Patrick Bateman in American Psycho,
Yes, it was before that movie.
check out Brown
It's
Bunny.
Vincent Gallo's The Brown Bunny. Vincent Gallo,
that's right.
is the dick she was sucking.
Good for her.
He was the main actor.
And now she's famous.
No, I don't think because of that, but she was. That was a very controversial, famous scene.
Oh, man.
For that reason.
Yeah.
I don't know how controversial or famous it was because I was a young kid and I didn't know that news around that time. But once I saw it and once I read some clips and stuff, news clippings, yeah, it was pretty famous.
Oh,
I think.
dude. Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Um,
Well, we said we're going to keep it short.
we're trying.
Got a lot to cover.
Yeah.
Lot to cover. So let's go through the contact info.
Okay.
that
So
work?
I shut off the mic now? Because I don't know.
Oscar, do you know our Facebook?
I think Lexi knows.
Yeah.
What is it? If you know it and Oscar don't, I'm ending the show right now. What's our Facebook, Lexi? What's our Facebook page?
Is it Chicago Ghost Podcast?
It is.
Oh fuck! Oh, this is the last show, guys.
Oscar.
I'm so sorry. He promised.
Oscar.
He promised he would end the show.
At Chicago
So thank you
Ghost
so much
Podcast.
for listening. If you go on Patreon, you'll see that it's not up there anymore.
Lexi, good. I feel, wow. I feel really good right now. Lexi, who hasn't been here in 6
First
months.
of all, you don't feel really good. You feel extra good that you have something on me. That's
Yes.
really what you have.
Yes.
Yeah.
At Chicago Ghost Podcast on Facebook. Instagram and Twitter is at Chicago Ghosts. At Chicago Ghosts. I'm always on Instagram posting cool stuff. Twitter, not so much. It's auto posting. But from Instagram, we have a really great comment. It was a DM, direct message, PM, private message. What do you call it?
When you said DM, I remember this song. Hold on.
What do you call it on Instagram?
Direct
I don't-
message, yeah.
A DM, yes. So we had a great DM. Thank you, Lexi.
Stop saying DM.
We have a great
No, sorry. You can
one of
say
those
it.
private messages.
Yes.
Quote, quote, "Hi guys, I'm new to the podcast and I've been binge listening to them all. Love it. You need to come into Australia. There's so much to see and investigate here. Loving your guys' work and can't wait to hear more. Hugs, Ray, a.k.a. Shorty. So, Shorty Ray, Down Under, thank you for the wonderful Instagram comment. I did.
Had to say it.
That's not a knife.
Oh, my God. You just had to make, what's that movie called?
Shrimp on the Bobby.
Look, you can killing me. Killing me.
Foster's.
Ray, feel free to never listen to us again. Rabbit Proof Fence. I mentioned a movie that many people know. That's not many people know from Australia. Anyway, that's not
High Tension.
High Tension is a French movie.
Fuck,
you
I thought
fuck.
it was Australia.
It's a different continent.
When he cuts the girl's head off. And
Yeah,
makes her
that's
give
all
her a
French.
blowjob.
It's a French movie.
Fuck,
They're speaking
I swear to
French.
God, that was. I said subtitles. I don't know.
Australians speak English. What the fuck is up? And they don't,
Ray, I'm so sorry.
Aborigine. How do I know more than you?
I thought that. I swear to God, I thought High Tension was Australia.
You fucking.
Oh my God!
I thought you were joking with me, and then
No,
I realized
I
you
was-
saw your face. And
I mean, yeah, I was joking.
It's totally
Oscar.
real. Nope, it's not. It's totally real.
Well, anyway, Ray,
Tension.
Shorty Ray, thank you for listening. We hope to keep you entertained despite my ignorance of your country. We love you.
It's okay. I compensate.
Anything to say to
It
Ray?
was a fucked up scene though in High Tension with the mouth. Yeah,
man, yeah,
that was the opening.
I think it just throws the head out
Just
of the
throws the
window.
head out the window. Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. YouTube.
It exists.
Supernatural Occurrence Studies on YouTube. I have a lot of stuff up there. I just put up a brand new video, something we caught on our Blink camera a few days ago at 4 a.m. in the morning. Very weird. Lexi, was it pretty creepy? You saw?
Yeah, it was creepy.
Yeah. Do you remember the name of the video? Because I don't.
No.
Blink captures another ghost. I think that was it.
Sure.
It was 7 seconds.
Yeah, it's very short.
Or 10 seconds.
10 seconds. It was very short. But listeners, I'm always putting stuff up on YouTube. We just caught something new on our Blink cameras. Check it out. Let us know what you think it is. While you're on YouTube, make sure and subscribe. Hit the bell so you're notified every time we upload new content. Our website is chicagoghostpodcast.com. Did I say that too fast? That's chicagoghostpodcast.com. From the website, you get to...
pausing doesn't make the saying of it less faster.
I know.
Okay.
From our website, you could get to all of our social platforms. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, hint, hint.
Why don't you start with saying the website and then the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram stuff?
Do you think that would make more sense?
I think it makes more sense because I think with the way... Nope, burp, not going. The way attention spans go,
Yeah.
they remember the first thing more, right? Or right before they start like mentally checking out
that's
of
true.
regularly,
You remember the first and the last.
just like sex.
It's true. That is very true.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. I always start with that first, but I don't have. Actually, my show doesn't have Twitter, so fuck all that noise.
No, we could definitely try that. I'll do that next time.
Yeah.
Or in 3 episodes from now.
I don't know. It might work.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
But, on our website, you get to all the social stuff, including Patreon and YouTube and Facebook, all that fun stuff. But there's also tons of our
MySpace.
photographs
Yeah.
from over the last 20 years, some great paranormal photography, a blog, videos, all sorts of cool stuff. So make sure and check out our website.
We should get something international for our international listeners, like WhatsApp.
Is WhatsApp an international
Yeah,
thing?
it's international.
Is it really?
Yeah.
You think of shit? All right.
No, I'm saying there are platforms that are more universal. That we could add to something.
Like Tinder?
No, what?
Oh,
How is Tinder universal?
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it is universal.
I'm
Like,
old.
I don't know what Tinder means, though, when you said it.
I don't know. There's
The interface or
swipe
something?
left, swipe right.
No, WhatsApp is just a communication device. It's an app that lets you talk to people, but from anywhere in the world without, like, region differences, region problems, or anything like that.
Oh, I like this.
You know what I'm saying?
So maybe we'll get on WhatsApp.
Yeah. Or that's the only one I can think of, actually. But yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I'm
I'll
saying
look
there are
into
other
that.
options out there. We have Australian listeners now.
We do.
I'm just saying that's like the other side of the world.
It is the other side of the world.
It's almost literally.
I heard in Australia the toilets flush in reverse.
Actually they don't.
Is that true?
I don't
They
know.
don't?
I have no idea. Actually,
I don't know
I remember hearing something about that, and they explained it, and I forgot.
Do you really want to know what I know about Australia?
I swear to God, if
It's
know
the
what?
Great Barrier Reef.
Mm-hmm, okay.
and Silverchair, a band from the 90s.
You know that one of the last conquered societies or peoples that didn't know of the outside world is an island outside of Australia.
Really?
I forgot the name of it, though. It's going to drive me nuts now. Yeah, because so when the world was getting civilized, or meaning conquered, Spain went over the seas, went to the Americas, and then they all knew each other. Oh, shit, there's a whole land over there, right? And China knew, oh, shit, there's a whole land. You know, when everyone was learning about each other's existences, the very last place, according to recorded history, is this place, not a small island, but a large island, whatever, of these people, Aborigines, I guess, or natives, that emigrated to these islands, this one island specifically, and they knew about the world existing last, about how big the world was
Could
last.
you imagine being those people?
Yeah, I don't know. But they got conquered, so they're all dead. Yeah, they're all dead.
That's that.
They're all dead.
Ray, all right, we're moving on. Patreon.com/supernatural Occurrence Studies podcast. Donate to our Patreon. Help support our Passion Project.
Or don't.
And receive cool stuff like ad-free content.
That would be lovely.
And signed photographs of ghosts, like actual legit ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
All sorts of cool stuff. Join our Patreon, patreon.com/supernatural Occurrence Studies podcast. You can call us or text us anytime at Chicago area code 872-529-0767. That's 872-529-0767. Leave us a message. Send us a text. We'll read them and play them on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is important. This is so important. You got to leave us some love on iTunes, where it really counts.
Oh. This counts more than Patreon.
It does.
Oh.
iTunes reviews helps listeners just like you find our little show. So if I could get everyone who's left us Facebook comments and Instagram private messages, tweets, YouTube comments, if I could get you guys to head over to iTunes and leave the same love there, we would love you long time. You know what I mean?
I do now.
That's where it counts. We appreciate everything, but iTunes is where it counts. So listeners, head over to iTunes and leave us some love. You could do it right off the phone you're probably listening to this podcast to right now. Did I forget anything?
Are we doing the intro?
This is the intro.
No. I know that. I know where I am, Jay. I meant with the research thing.
Yeah, Jessica. Yeah. So on the last episode or two, I did make mention that we hired a research assistant.
Mm-hmm.
The show was getting too overwhelming.
Yep.
Listeners depend on in-depth research and great storytelling, and it was just getting too hard for me to handle it by myself with work and family and whatnot. And we can't stop the show, so we hired a research assistant. Her name is Jessica Saline, a bona fide, actual newspaper reporter.
She's got bona fides?
She's got all the bonds. Fides.
Yeah, good.
She's got that.
I save.
She actually helped me assemble the Manson podcast episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And last week, I got a chance to sit down on Skype with Jessica and interview her a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's short, listeners. It's short. But I just wanted her to introduce herself to the audience.
Yeah.
Talk about her background, what she thinks of the show, what she thinks of the web I'm spinning with serial killers. So I'd like to play that clip now.
I hope I'm not too crass for her. I feel like I'm too crass for people.
Jessica seems like a girl who, if you were too crass, she'd just give you a slap.
Nice.
She's tough. Tough girl.
Great.
So it is a Skype interview. So let's hear from Jessica. Oscar, can we roll that real quick?
Yeah.
Listeners, welcome to the show. Our newest member of the Supernatural Occurrence Studies podcast, our very own research assistant, Miss Jessica Saline. Jessica, say hello to our lovely listeners.
Hello, all SOS podcast listening fans. I'm Jessica, and it's really, really, really great to be here, Jason.
And we're really excited to have you. I kind of alluded to you last couple episodes that we had found a research assistant. I was very excited about someone to finally lend some legitimacy to this little passion project of ours. Would you mind explaining to the listeners a little bit about yourself and your background and how you're going to lend some credibility to what we talk about here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so I currently work as a journalist in Ohio. I think you said that before. But I definitely, I have my degree in journalism. I've worked at a number of newspapers, actually across the U.S. Never up in Chicago, though, but I have been in New York, which sounds fancier than what it actually is. But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of experience in that kind of area. I definitely have a lot of research experience, and I have like a very big passion for true crime and paranormal studies and all that stuff. So I'm just really excited to be aboard.
Yeah, likewise. And that passion, we had quite a few people apply for the research assistant position, but it was the passion that you brought to the research that I had assigned to you as sort of a test to see how you handled, working on deadlines and covering the topics that we cover and things. Not for everybody. It was the passion that you brought to that exercise and to conversations we've had since that really said to me we've made the right choice. I love this podcast with all my heart. Oscar and I pour our heart and soul into it, so it really had to be the right fit. When we brought someone on, I don't like cooks in my kitchen. I never have, never will. But finding a kindred spirit who could not only bring legitimacy to the show, but also enjoy the topics that we cover, that was paramount for me, and that's what I feel I found in you.
Well, great. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, in my line of work, deadlines are an everyday thing, right? So that's something that I'm very used to. But I don't often get to, get into stuff that I really am very interested in. So this is it's a breath of fresh air for me. Honestly, I really enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to doing more. So
excellent. Well, I have a lot of topics in mind. I'll keep you swamped if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. As much as you got, for sure.
Awesome. So tell me, Jessica Celine, that is not your real name.
No, it is not.
We always use pseudonyms here because sometimes listeners that follow this kind of topic they're a little nuts. So we, and I mean that totally endearingly. I love you all, but you can be a little crazy. So we use pseudonyms. Where did you come up with the pseudonym Celine?
Well, it's a little bit dorky. I grew up and I love the Marvel comics. I'm really big into the movies and all of that, but X-Men was always the big one for my family. And in the comic books, I think actually she might have made her first movie appearance really recently in Dark Phoenix, but Celine was always my favorite supervillain. And so I felt like it fit perfectly for this and kind of what we were doing. Plus, I mean, Greek goddess of the moon, I think it is, and I'm super night owl, so it works both ways.
Ah, okay, nice. So super villain and night owl, love it.
Yep.
So I also want to ask, what made you reach out to the show to apply for this research assistant position? What was it that drew you to the show?
Well, honestly, and she'll kill me if I don't say it was my mom who saw it first. We have both been long time listeners of the show, but she tends to wake up a little bit earlier than me, so she listened to the episode first. And as I was waking up, I got 3 text messages from her that were like, there's this research assistant position open. You have to apply for it. It would be perfect for you. And she was absolutely correct. And as soon as I listened to the episode, I knew that it was something that I wanted to do immediately because, like I said, I love the topics. I kind of have the background, in the area that would make me, at least in my humble opinion, a perfect fit. And I really like listening to you guys. I really like the chemistry on the show, and I felt like it was something that I could work within really well. So,
well, I mean, speechless. Thank you so much to you and your mom for being listeners. And again, glad you reached out. I do want to have you back on the show periodically, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
To sort of check in on research you're doing, ideas you're forming by doing research on certain topics, and just get your take on things we're going to be talking about in the future. Would that be okay?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I would love that.
Okay. And one final question. So you're aware of, we've talked a lot offline, you're aware of this web that I'm trying to spin, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned it ad nauseum on the show. People probably want it to come to a conclusion already, but they're going to have to wait. Do you think with this serial killer web that I'm spinning, as a journalist, as an investigative reporter, as someone who has access to information, and do you think I'm onto something?
Absolutely. And, you know, if I'm being honest, when we kind of first had that conversation about it, when we first started researching the topic that we were discussing, which I won't get too into is to spoil anything, but you kind of laid it out for me a little bit, and I had heard you talk about it on the podcast before. But my initial thought was, okay, like, are we stretching a little bit? Okay. And then the more that I dug into even just this singular one, the more I was like, wow, not only is he on to something, but this goes deeper even than that. Like every little piece of information that I found was just connecting dots after dots after dots. And I really do. I think you're on to something. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, there's a teaser for you guys. Make sure and stay tuned to the podcast as we roll out the serial killer web over the next half a year or so, and wait for that conclusion. Jessica, thank you for taking the time and getting together with me this evening, and I hope you like the way this comes out.
I hope so, too. Thanks, Jason.
You're welcome. All right, on with the show. So, listeners, that's Jessica Celine, our villainous night owl. So happy to have her on the show. She's awesome. She's going to do some great work for us. I already have her working on the next topic, so we will check in with her periodically and get her take on what she's researching. Jessica.
Yes.
What do you think?
I think that I've only met like 4 Jessicas. That's what I thought when I said.
Okay.
That's all I know.
Great.
That's
well,
great.
Well said.
I'm so glad that you have someone to lighten the load because, I don't see the payoff right away, but I will see a slightly happier Jay in front of me.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, a slightly happier. I know that you're a neurotic mess.
Yes.
You will never actually be happy.
No.
Or noticeably, but
You're
just
right.
slightly.
If I have a little more spring in my step,
Yeah.
Jessica did her job.
Yes.
All right, so before we go to break, I just, again, want to kind of reiterate to listeners that tonight's topic will be broken into 3 episodes. This is our mega episode, my pièce de résistance, as I had said. In tonight's episode, we'll cover background and history. In 2 weeks, we'll cover murder.
Which is also part of history.
Murder. And 2 weeks after that, we'll get into connections and conspiracies.
And connects.
Can continue that web that I'm spinning.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how this is going to break down.
That's a nice parting.
Yeah.
Or parsing. Whatever.
Parsing?
Yeah.
Works. So what do you say we go to break?
Yeah.
And we'll come back and get into Charles Manson.
Yeah, let's do it. Today's episode of the Supernatural Occurrence Studies podcast is brought to you by LootCrate.com. Loot Crate, totally rad swag from your favorite movie, television, and video game franchises delivered conveniently to your front door. That's Marvel, Far Cry, Rick and Morty, Batman, WWE, Harry Potter, anime, Minecraft, Stranger Things, and a whole lot more, guys. Visit trylootcrate.com/SOS-radio and enter promo code BRIDGE10 to receive 10% off any new subscription. That's trylootcrate.com/SOS-radio and enter promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% off any new subscription to Loot Crate. Your order must be placed, however, before 9 p.m. Pacific Time on or before the 19th of the month to secure your special listener offer. That's trylootcrate.com/SOS-radio and enter promo code, what's that, guys? BRIDGE10.
Listeners, welcome back to the show. Please check out our sponsor or sponsors. Help support the podcast. We would greatly appreciate it.
Sure, sponsors. Plural. Sponsor, probably.
It's always been sponsor, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
it has, yes.
Well, the lights are turned down low. The drinks are flowing.
That they are.
And the ceremonial candle is lit. Lexi, how lit is that candle?
It's lit, fam.
Lit fam, indeed. It's actually a Ouija board candle.
You're aging yourself every time you say things like that.
Lit family? Lighting families? What is this? Get off my lawn. Turn down your music. Damn kids.
You gotta say more. You can't say get off my lawn. We have to say step off my grass.
Step off me grass.
Yeah, I just combined like 3 dialects.
Yeah,
right
that was
there.
cool. I like that.
Yeah, step it up.
Let's start this show. So, the subject of tonight's episode was born on November 12th, 1934, in Cincinnati, Ohio. Jessica, we have another Ohioan. The child's last name, listed on his birth certificate, should have been a clue as to how, shall we say, unconventional our subject's life would be. On his birth certificate, he was listed simply as No Name.
What?
No Name Maddox. Yeah. No Name's biological father wasn't in the picture, so shortly after the child's birth, he took on his maternal grandfather's name, Charles, or Charlie Maddox. And then, when baby Charlie's mother married a man named William Manson, one of the many men that would come and go in her life, the boy was given his final, infamous name. No one could have guessed that this little bouncing bundle of joy would one day grow up to be a man who, almost single-handedly, snuffed out the peace and love culture that bloomed in the United States during the 1960s. Who could have guessed that this boy, one day as a man, would arguably trump anything that happened in the United States or around the world during the 1960s, and who would be called one of the most infamous men in modern American history? Rolling Stones magazine would call the boy that would be, quote, the most dangerous man alive, end quote. Not only that, the mere mention of his name would one day conjure images of sex, drugs, gruesome murder, and even the devil himself among the public. We're talking, of course, about Charles Milles Manson. Charles Manson's father is believed to have been a man named Colonel Walker Henderson Scott Sr.
I already know a connection.
Colonel was his actual name, but he wasn't military.
Oh, damn.
He was the exact opposite of a respectable military man.
He was a drunkard? Must have been.
Kind of.
I'm trying to think of the opposite.
He was a swindler, a hustler, a real slimy dude.
A crookster, see?
Yeah. Who used his actual name, Colonel, to trick people, especially women, into believing he was a high-ranking member of the U.S. military. Sometimes he would claim Army.
That's a felony, right?
Or you get your ass beat.
Yeah.
False flagging.
No, I think a felony impersonating a armed services, right? That's the thing, right?
I don't know if it's a crime, but it is a definite no-no.
Okay.
Sometimes Colonel would claim he was Army, or sometimes Air Force. And when old Colonel found out that a girl he seduced was pregnant, a 16-year-old named Kathleen Maddox, he disappeared faster than a Lockheed Archangel 12, leaving Kathleen and her approaching bundle of joy, to fend for themselves. And going forward, we never hear from Colonel Henderson again. Now, Charles Manson's mother, Kathleen Maddox, 16 years old at the time of his birth and going nowhere really fast, preferred to drink and party and swindle than be a mother to little Charlie Manson. There are some reports that Kathleen Maddox was a prostitute. She would disappear for days on end, leaving little Charlie with his grandparents. She was the kind of mother who today would definitely have her kids taken away by DCFS, for sure. And mother and son were poor. Dirt poor. There's a story that says Kathleen sold her only son Charlie for a pitcher of beer to some waitress. And later, Charlie's uncle Luther, another piece of work, had to track the woman down and take his nephew back. And Charlie's mother, Kathleen, she was a criminal. She and her brother Luther would set up scams to rob men of money and their goods. Kathleen would meet a man, seduce him, and then lure him to a vulnerable location. Then good old brother Luther would show up, and the two would rob the unsuspecting Mark. They did this little dance one too many times, and in 1938, when Charlie Manson was just 4 or 5 years old, Kathleen Maddox was arrested for again setting up a John to get robbed. Robbing him, then stealing his vehicle, again along with her brother Luther. Not being criminal masterminds, the two were caught the next day, and Kathleen Maddox was sentenced to 5 years in prison.
Oh.
While his mother was in prison, Charlie went to live with his aunt and uncle in West Virginia.
What about the grandmother, do you know?
Don't know.
Okay.
Don't know. Yeah, grandmother definitely not in the picture. Now, his aunt and uncle were strict, but that didn't stop young Charles Manson from getting into trouble. By the time Kathleen got out of prison, having served 3 years out of her 5-year sentence, Charlie, now 8 years old, had already begun committing petty burglaries and was regularly skipping school. And even as a child, Charlie lied. And he was already at pro status at manipulating people. And he could be violent if provoked. And even as a young boy, family and friends said Charlie had those cold, haunting eyes, like shark's eyes. Eyes that would grace the cover of Life magazine in December 1969, which in turn both captivated and terrified America.
Were they doll's eyes?
Oh, from Jaws,
Yeah.
right?
Sorry. You said 2 of the 3 things, so I just want to say the third thing.
Now, at this point, with the lying, the manipulating, the skipping school, those terrifying eyes, Charles Manson isn't even 10 years old. Now, after getting out of prison and reuniting with her son, Kathleen and Charlie wandered the country, living in dirty hotels, surrounding themselves with shady characters, and doing whatever they needed to do to survive.
Was that like I wonder, I mean, I know there was no, maybe there was a child services, maybe not, but they weren't like heavy.
Yeah, I don't think they even existed.
It's possible they weren't.
DCFS, right? I meant the Department of Children and Family Services.
Yeah, I think they didn't exist. I think that's kind of not a new thing in American history.
Definitely not back then.
No, yeah.
But had they existed,
Which is
Charlie
sad.
would have been gone.
It's sad that they wasn't around. Did she just claim custody? Was that even a thing? I mean, just take the kid from the aunt and uncle?
Yeah, she's the mother. That's it.
Oh,
Time to go.
Wow. Wonder what they thought of it.
I don't know.
Maybe was it really that plain and simple? Was the law really against an aunt and uncle? In
If
that
the law was
situation?
even involved at all.
Right? Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just so used to nowadays.
The way it is today.
Yeah, maybe
right.
I just maybe asking the wrong
But
questions.
I think it was much simpler back then.
Yeah.
Mother's out of prison. All right, come get your son.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
Now, at this time, Charlie got into stealing cars, so he's stepping up in the criminal world. He was robbing cash registers and burglarizing storerooms. His behavior eventually escalated to a point where his mother couldn't handle him, so she committed her only son to a minimum security reform school run by Catholic priests called the Gibault School for Boys in Terre Haute, Indiana. And Charlie escaped. When he escaped, he lived on the streets for a while, committing petty crimes, a lot of burglaries, just to get by. And again, he was caught. And this time, he was sent to a place called Boys Town in Omaha, Nebraska. Now, by all accounts, Charlie escaped from this place, too. When he was caught again, he was sent back to the Gibault School for Boys in Terre Haute, Indiana.
What?
And this time, he wanted to do good. He wanted to change his life, whether real or just a play for authority.
What age is he right now?
He's still under 20 years old.
Is he of age, though? 18?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. Now, unfortunately for Charles Manson, being a part of America's reform school system in the late 1940s and 1950s, and being a small, skinny boy, I mean, as an adult, he only stood 5 foot 2 inches and weighed 125 pounds. Charlie found himself the target of regular physical and sexual abuse perpetrated by both reform school guards and older, bigger, meaner kids. Rape became such a part of Charlie's life, such a common experience, that later in life he would just wave it off and laugh as if rape wasn't a big deal. Happened so often that to Charles Manson it lost its impact. It just came with the territory.
Oh, that's crazy. Not especially, but you usually hear that with women more often.
Yeah. Raped constantly. But while he was growing up in the reform school system, Charlie figured out a way to get people to leave him the fuck alone. To cope with unwanted physical and sexual attention, Charlie perfected what he called his insane game. Whenever a predator approached him, be it a guard or another boy, Charlie would pretend to be crazy. He would screech wildly, flail his arms like a madman, and would make his face tick and twitch. People started to think he was nuts, so they left him alone.
Yeah.
Years later, Charles Manson would tell his family of followers that if he were ever caught, he would play the insane game and to not be fooled by whatever they saw on television or read in the newspapers. And sure enough, this is exactly what he did countless times, in court, in jail, and in interviews. He knew exactly what he was doing. Anyway, back to his incarcerations. Charles Manson escaped the Gibault School for Boys in 1951 and wound up spending time at other reform schools, like the National Training School for Boys in Washington, D.C., where he was, quote, evaluated for physiological problems and deemed to be aggressively antisocial. He was also given an IQ test and scored 119, while the national average at the time was just 100.
Yeah.
So, Shrink said he wasn't crazy at all. In fact, he was quite intelligent. From the school's evaluations, it was recommended by physicians that he be transferred to a place called the Natural Bridge Honor Camp. But before he was able to be paroled in 1952 from the National Bridge Honor Camp, Manson was caught raping another boy at knife point.
Oh, wow.
At this point, Manson's not even 20 years old, and he's already spent most of his life incarcerated, getting beat, raped, and perfecting his insane game. Now, Manson began doing real prison time between 1951 and 1954, ending at a maximum security prison in Ohio, where Manson was released to his aunt and uncle in 1954. For a short while, Charles Manson really tried to straighten himself out when he got out. He found honest employment and even got married to a 17-year-old waitress named Rosalie Willis, and she bore him a son, Charles Miles Manson Jr. Manson convinced his new wife to move to Florida using a stolen car to do so. En route, he was arrested and sent to prison yet again. Rosalie left Manson and took his son, Charlie Jr. Rosalie got remarried, and Charles Manson Jr. took on his stepfather's name, becoming Jay White instead of Charles Manson Jr. Jay White committed suicide in 1990, apparently, according to rumor, because he couldn't live down his father's past. He was haunted by it. He shot himself in the head.
You're kidding.
Anyway, after Rosalie left, Charlie got out of prison and married another woman named Leona Candy Stevens, who was, by most accounts, a prostitute. She, too, bore Charles a son, named Charles Luther Manson. Charles Manson Sr., I guess, was again arrested and imprisoned, this time for pimping his wife, Leona. While he was in prison, Leona left with Charlie Luther. Later, Charles Manson had a third son with one of his earliest family members, a woman named Mary Brunner, a.k.a. Mother Mary. She was a librarian at UC Berkeley. This would have been in 1968. Now, this son's name was Valentine Michael, whom Manson and Brunner called Pooh Bear. Later in life, Pooh Bear took on his mother's name, Brunner, and today he's believed to be the only living son of Charles Manson.
What happened to that second kid?
Lost to time.
Oh, there's no records?
Yeah, well, the second one was lost to time, right? First one killed himself, second lost to time.
Oh, last time. I thought you meant like I thought you were being cryptic.
Yeah.
Sorry,
no,
you meant like he
time.
just died of old age.
Yeah, just
Okay.
lost to time.
Gotcha.
Now, later in life, like I said, Pooh Bear took on his mother's name, Brunner, and today is believed to be the only living son of Charles Manson. Anyway, Manson did more stints in various prisons for various shit.
Yeah.
Passing bad checks, stealing, pimping. And for these offenses, he did additional time in Texas, Washington, and California, just to name a few.
Man of the world?
Man of the world.
Well, man of the country. Right.
So you might be asking yourself, why am I spending this time on Manson prison terms instead of just saying he was a fucking criminal? End of story. Well, you got to understand, Manson never went further than 7th grade. He was borderline illiterate. Instead, Manson got all of his education and learned to be an expert con and a freakishly powerful manipulator in prison. The prison system was Charles Manson's grammar school, high school, and college. And in prison, he was especially drawn to pimps. Manson was fascinated by the story told by the pimps he would come across in the clink.
Yeah, they were heavy back then.
Yeah, the harems they would keep, the control they had over their stock, and the stock's undying devotion to their pimps. Some of the sage advice imparted onto Manson by the pimps were such things like, treat each woman as if she was special, give them the love and support they need, and slap them around from time to time to show them who's boss. And always try to enlist women who suffered some sort of past trauma. If the trauma was at the hands of their fathers, even better.
Oh, that's specific.
That's specific.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, that HBO show, the one about the, it's not about just hookers, but it's about like life in New York in the 70s and 60s. The 70s primarily.
Oh, with James DeFranco?
Yeah, James DeFranco.
DeFranco, yeah. Well,
I mean, Franco.
James Franco, yeah.
Yeah.
I made him too Italian.
DeFranco is the Franco
James
family,
Franco.
right?
Yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
I'm just forgetting the name of it right
He
now.
always wore cool leather jackets.
Yes. Because there's a pimp scene heavy in that show, and it's actually showing the waning side of the pimp world, that pimp life going away.
Well, this was still strong.
Well, stronger then,
during
yeah.
this
But I'm
time.
saying in
Yeah.
this, I think you're approaching the 80s is where that's waning heavy.
I see.
Yeah, and it's going away, and you can see them being phased out by the idea of brothels, for example.
Ah, okay.
Or like centralized locations, or like being your own woman master kind of thing, like doing it your own business side, or going into pornography, which is about the porn business, really. Also, that show, and it's
Right.
It's interesting.
I've seen it.
seen that kind of thing though. That kind of thing you're talking about in that show.
Yes, these were the people Manson was really
And they're all
drawn to.
eyewitnesses. They're all like testimonials. A lot of that stuff is researched heavily too.
Nice.
in that
I
show.
wish I can't. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Me too, but it's just going away.
But
right
yeah, that's the type of person he was drawn to.
now. Yeah, it's crazy shit though. Back then.
Now, this instruction manual, if you will, for
Yeah.
controlling women, imparted by the pimps, would be something that Manson would use to build his fanatically devoted family of mostly female followers later on. Not only did Charles Manson learn the art of pimping, manipulation, and conning in prison, he also grew to be incredibly racist, finding blacks to be much more physically fit and aggressive than whites. And some say Manson was afraid of blacks. And he believed that even though whites weren't as physically capable as the blacks, whites were much smarter. Nice, right? So we have pimping, manipulation, conning, and racism learned in prison. On top of that, Manson also found religion in prison. Religion in the form of Scientology and psychobabble.
Scientology specifically?
Specifically. Now, I'm not going to get into all the tenements of Scientology here. We'll save that wacky shit for another episode. But the gist of what Manson picked up from Scientology in prison is this, and I'm oversimplifying here. Your spirit never dies. Your spirit transcends time and space. Death doesn't really exist. Time doesn't exist. There is no good or evil. To Manson, he believed that all human beings are God and the devil at the same time, that all human beings are part of each other, and human life has no individual value. If you kill a human being, Manson would say, you're just killing a part of yourself. It has no meaning. Death is only psychosomatic. Or he would constantly tell his followers, I'm just a mirror. Anything you see in me is you. Crazy shit like that.
Yeah.
Later on, while Manson was building his family and attaining a godlike status among his followers, these tenements were reiterated by Manson to his followers time and time and time again. Time and time again, while his followers were on heavy doses of LSD, and right before, during, or right after Manson family orgies. You could probably see how powerful his tactic was.
Yeah.
People tripping tits on acid, fucking each other's brains out, and being conned by an expert manipulator, chanting this existential bullshit. This is how Charles Manson convinced his family members to do anything he, their godlike leader, who often referred to himself as God, asked them to do. Even kill. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
Here's a big tease.
In 1967, Manson gets out of prison for the final time before going to prison for the final time. He'd been incarcerated for passing bad checks at Terminal Island, a low-security prison in Los Angeles, California. When he gets out, he's 33 years old and has spent almost all of his life either in reform schools or in prison. He's not a hippie, like most people think. He doesn't even know what the fuck a hippie was or what they stood for. He's been in prison. He's a hardened criminal, a con, a manipulator, a wannabe pimp. And he didn't know how to survive on the outside. He actually wanted to stay in prison. In his own words, Charles Manson was comfortable in prison. He knew the ropes, understood the cliques. He learned things in prison, things no school or parent could teach. Things made sense behind the cement walls and barbed wire fences.
Institutionalized.
Insta-fucking-tutionalized 100%. And in prison, Charles Manson was able to write music. Oh, yes. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is that Charles Manson wanted to make it big time in the entertainment industry. Manson saw making it big in Hollywood, in music more precisely, as the only way he could make it from dirt poor to powerful. And make no bones about it, Manson wanted to be powerful. Fuck the riches. You could keep the riches. He wanted power. And sex. And for Charlie, it all went back to Dale Carnegie training he took while in prison. Sex and ego, according to Carnegie, were the biggest human motivators. And since power fed ego, well...
Yeah.
Charles Manson studied heavily one of Carnegie's most famous books called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Listeners probably heard of this book. Specifically, Manson clung to Carnegie's concept of letting the other person feel that your idea was actually his or her own idea. Do this, and people will do what you want them to do without them even realizing it. Anyways, music, right? For Manson, making it big in the music industry was the key to ego, power, and sex. And while in prison, Manson wrote somewhere around 80 songs. He would strum his guitar and write and sing songs to either himself or to other prisoners. And people said he was pretty good, too. Now, I got to tell you, I really love one of Manson's songs.
I know you do.
And it's, I know. How could you love a song by that monster?
It's, I mean...
What the fuck
so
ever.
Strange.
Yeah. Now, I want to play a sample of one of my favorite Charles Manson songs called Look at Your Game Girl, which he wrote in 1968 for his album called Lie, The Love and Terror Cult. Well, if that isn't foreshadowing.
Lye or Lie?
Lie. And much later, in 1993, Look at Your Game Girl was covered by Guns N' Roses as an unlisted song, a bonus on their album The Spaghetti Incident. And people went nuts when they found out Guns N' Roses put a Manson song on their album. They fucking hated it. I remember the backlash. Oscar, can we play a quick cut of Manson's song?
Absolutely not.
Wait, you know what? Fuck that. It's short. Oscar, roll the whole song, would you?
Oh, in that case.
There's a time for living. The time keeps on flying. Think you're loving, baby, and all you're doing is crying. Can you feel? Those feelings real. Look at your game, girl. Look at your game, girl. What a mad delusion. Living in that confusion, frustration and doubt. Can you ever live without the game? The sad, sad game. Just to say your love's not enough. If on you can't be true, you can tell those lies, baby, but you're only fooling you. Can you feel those feelings real? Look at your game, girl. Oh, look at your game, girl. If you can't feel and the feelings ain't real, then you better stop trying, or you're gonna play crying. Stop trying, or you're gonna play crying. That's the game. Sad, sad game. Mad game. Sad game.
I don't know what it is, listeners, but I fucking love that song. Let us know what you think. Contact at ChicagoGhostPodcast.com. Oscar, so I just let you listen to that music, that song, for the first time. Mm-hmm. Right when it ended, you said, that's not bad.
I said that was the worst song I've ever heard.
You
I
did
didn't. I'm kidding. I was gaslighting you.
Dude, I listen to that song constantly in my car. I tell my kids, hey, you know who this is?
And they're like, yes, Dad, Manson.
Manson, Dad, we get it.
Disney World's over there.
What did you think?
I liked it, actually. And I try to... you're right. I'm like you in a way, in a sense. I don't care. That the past and whatever. And,
by liking the song.
By liking the
song. I don't care. I like it, yeah.
But there is something, though. It's I almost feel like that should be a topic in itself, because I have such pull, push feelings and thoughts on that, because we're seeing that a lot right now. Just not murderers like this. It's like you think of Kevin Spacey, for example. You think of or Woody Allen, right?
Oh, yeah.
You think of things like that.
Yes.
It's similar. And if anything...
So Manson, I still like Kevin Spacey.
7?
Kaiser Sose.
Usual Suspect.
I love Usual Suspects.
I love that movie,
and
too.
7.
Yeah, and 7, yeah.
Even though Kevin Spacey's a creep.
And K-Pax.
I loved K-Pax.
Oh, I bet you did.
Oh, I love K-Pax.
And I was making a joke, but you went with it.
I did.
And you like it.
I hook, line, and sinker.
Okay. And I don't know, it's an interesting topic. I want to talk about it, but that's too long for here. But I did. So that wasn't bad.
Wasn't bad.
I liked it. I would listen to that again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he wasn't. He thought himself a musician, and I think he did have some talent. And this is all going to play into what ultimately happens with Charles Manson.
I think it's all about location. I think that's what you're going for, right? I know I'm not spoiling anything.
No, you're not spoiling.
But I think it is about that.
In some sense, probably, yes.
In some sense I am. But if people already know where I'm going, then they already know. But for those who don't know where I'm going, they don't know.
Correct.
By saying that.
Correct.
But yes.
All right, so that was Charles Manson. That was the infamous Charles Manson crooning his heart out with "Look at Your Game Girl."
Probably in prison. No, I don't know when he recorded that.
So, When Charles Manson got out of Terminal Island in 1967 for passing bad checks, he came out to a world that was batshit crazy. The 60s were a fucked up time in history.
Well, also, like, just think about that time capsule. It does feel complete. It's like Brooks in Shawshank Redemption.
Yes,
there's cars everywhere. He has no idea what's going on.
That's a good analogy. Very
Everyone has paint on them, and the kids are saying weird things, and people are on the moon. What is going on? Like, it's insane.
Well, check this out. So, our younger listeners might not realize how divided our country was during the 60s. Crazy shit was going down. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in November 1963. We had the assassination of two predominant civil rights leaders, Malcolm X in February 1965 and Martin Luther King Jr. in April 1968. Bobby Kennedy was assassinated in June 1968. There was political unrest, Black Panthers, the Vietnam War, and all the protests to end it. Watts was burning. Cults and gurus and yogis were popping up everywhere. Kill Whitey, fuck the pigs.
Hare Krishna, too?
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Kill Whitey, fuck the pigs, fuck the establishment. Make love, not war. Peace, man. Smoke a joint. Take a hit of acid. Fuck your parents. Fuck religion. Go off the grid. Fuck who you want, when you want, where you want. Pass that joint.
And burn your bras.
Burn those bras. America was choking on a purple haze of dread. This is Charles Manson's post-prison world, and he didn't know what the fuck to do. Manson was released into a world full of free-living, drugged-up hippies and women who were supposed to be sexually uninhibited. Now, unbeknownst to Charlie at the time, he was right where he needed to be. To gain the attention of anyone worthwhile, any power player in the music industry, Manson knew he needed a harem of women to follow him. So, after prison, he first tripped on down to Berkley, California. Thought he could pick up some women there. And he did, sort of, but not the following he wanted. This was UC Berkeley, a more reserved hippie. Not the type of woman Manson's prison pimp hand guide said he should be looking for. However, he did meet his first Manson family member in Berkeley, that Mary Brunner I mentioned before, the one who gave birth to Manson's son, Valentine Michael, a.k.a. Pooh Bear. And while in Berkeley, Brunner gave Manson a place to stay and helped him recruit a number of girls into the slowly growing Manson family, including Lynette Squeaky Fromm, the Manson family member who attempted to assassinate President Gerald Ford in 1975. Since Berkeley wasn't really the vibe Manson was looking for, he, Brunner, Fromm, and a few others flew the Magic Dragon down to the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco, presumably to start a prostitution ring and to start a music career.
In that order.
In that order, right. You see, Manson's original idea wasn't to start a cult. His original idea was to attract a large crowd of followers so he could show music producers that he had an already built-in loyal audience.
I mean, nowadays you need millions and you need like a big Instagram following. But
you need them Instagram followers.
Right, things like that.
Now the cult, or the Manson family as they would be called, was a byproduct of his wanting to become a music star. And the hate was exactly what he needed. Sex, drugs, music, attitude, violence, prostitution, liberated women. It was all there for the taking in the hate. Now, Manson's tracks are hard to follow while he was in Haight-Ashbury. He was really transient, so it's hard to trace his steps accurately. What I do know is there was a lot of stealing, a lot of dumpster diving, and a lot of recruiting of followers. It's here in the Haight that Manson solidified himself as a guru, and he began using the name Charles Willis Manson, as in Charles Will is man's son, referring to himself in a roundabout way as the Son of Man. He would often tell his followers of visions he had in which he was nailed to a cross, essentially proclaiming himself Jesus Christ. When Manson grew tired of San Francisco, himself and 8 or 9 followers jumped into a pimped-out hippie bus and moved to, it's believed, as far as Washington State, then Los Angeles, then Mexico, then places in the Southwest, then back to L.A. where they quote-unquote lived in Topanga Canyon, Venice, and Malibu. All the while, the Manson family was growing. Keep in mind, any women he recruited, they saw Manson as their savior, as someone who stole them from their parents and gave them back to themselves. Of course, Manson wasn't giving anyone back to anybody. They were being manipulated. Remember Dale Carnegie's training that Manson studied in prison? Make people believe your ideas are their own and they'll do anything you want. This mentality is in full effect as Manson recruits. And it works. Now, it's during this transient time that an incredibly popular Manson story takes place. In the spring of 1968, Beach Boys co-founder and drummer Dennis Wilson is driving his beautiful sports car, his Ferrari, I believe, near his Pacific Palisades home in L.A., near Malibu, Topanga, and Brentwood. You see, Dennis Wilson of the Beach Boys was a kind man, and this story sucks for him. Dennis was famous, really famous, but always lend a hand and pick up hitchhikers. It was a different time then.
Yeah.
Now, on this fateful spring day in 1968, Dennis Wilson saw two young girls hitchhiking. Those two young girls were Manson family members, Patricia Krenwinkel and Ella Jo Bailey. Wilson picked them up and brought them back to his house for milk and cookies. Aww. And probably some nasty sex, too.
Probably.
Yum. The women leave and tell Manson about what happened, who they met. And Manson saw an opportunity. A few days later, Krenwinkel and Bailey returned to Brian Wilson's home. A little sex probably happened, and Dennis Wilson leaves the women at his house and goes out for the evening to do a recording session with the Beach Boys. Huge mistake. Later that night, when Wilson returns, Charles Manson is waiting for him in his driveway, while a full-on party is going on inside Wilson's own house, comprised mostly of young women, Charlie's women.
Yeah.
Now, to Dennis, this Charlie standing in his driveway that night was terrifying looking. He was dirty, scraggly hair and beard, weird clothes. And to prove that he wasn't there to hurt Dennis Wilson, story goes that Manson got down on his knees and began kissing Dennis Wilson's feet. Brian Wilson's his brother, who's also in the Beach Boys.
Oh, I know Brian Wilson.
Yeah. Manson got down on his knees and began kissing Dennis Wilson's feet. And that was it. From there, the Beach Boys and Charles Manson struck up the Beach Boy and Charles Manson struck up a friendship.
Freudian slip.
Yeah. And the two spent a good portion of the rest of 1968 partying together, along with the Manson family, who, by the way, quickly moved into Wilson's home. About 17 of them. Again, almost all women. And Charles Manson, of course. And by all accounts, Brian Wilson really liked Charles Manson. He called him the Wizard. Wilson even claimed to really
Dennis Wilson.
What did I say?
You said Brian.
Damn it.
Just making sure.
By all accounts, Dennis Wilson...
That's what I'm here for, folks.
I keep screwing it up.
It's okay.
He really liked Manson.
Just call him Dennis.
He called Manson the Wizard. Dennis Wilson even claimed to really like Manson's music, too. Therefore, Wilson happily introduced Manson to big names in the music industry, like Neil Young, whom Manson jammed with on a fairly regular basis, and to an incredibly popular record producer named Terry Melcher. But what Dennis really liked was the harem of women that swarmed around with Manson.
Yeah.
These Manson women, they catered to Dennis Wilson's every desire. So they fucked him. Constantly. In return,
Damn.
Wilson let the family use his credit cards, eat his food, take his clothes, take his gold records, drive his Mercedes and Ferrari, and even let them spend $100,000 of his own hard-earned cash. But that was okay with Wilson, so long as the orgies, LSD, pot, and partying continued.
That's such a. I mean, albeit Dennis Wilson had a bit of, he like a what do you want to say? Lust for sure, but he had like
Definitely.
this thing where he just couldn't. It was like an immature level of greed. Immature. Not greed's not the right word. Immature level of
pleasure of.
There's a word I'm thinking. It's in the tip of my brain, just like that show.
You're right. I mean, Dennis
it's-
Wilson liked to have a good time.
But but all the time, the idea that these women were doing his every thought's desire, something that by being rich and famous doesn't immediately mean that you get that either. It's like it's like the next step, but it's like he's so fucking, to something more modern, thirsty. He was so thirsty about it that
He really was.
he didn't know what to think. He didn't know what to think. I guess that's the.
He didn't realize what was going to happen.
It was immaturely
'Cause this
gluttonous.
ends- Gluttonous.
I was thinking that.
Perfect.
That's the word.
Immaturely gluttonous. Yes.
Yes.
Dennis Wilson was immaturely gluttonous. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like.
And it's sad because this ends bad for him.
Yeah, I know.
This really does.
Yeah.
Now, during this hazy time, while Dennis Wilson was still feeling pretty good about his relationship with the Wizard, with Charles Manson, he convinced his fellow Beach Boys to record a song Manson wrote called Cease to Exist. Now, this was it. This was Manson's big break. He's going to finally make it big in the music industry. But when Cease to Exist came out, the Beach Boys did everything the exact opposite what Manson wanted them to do.
Regarding what? The way they recorded it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they changed the sound of his song from a twangy, bluesy sound to more of a pop sound. They changed lyrics, and they even changed the song title from Cease to Exist to Never Learn Not to Love. And worst of all, in Manson's eyes, the Beach Boys changed the song credit from Charles Manson to fully written by Dennis Wilson. And ultimately, the song bombed on the charts. This betrayal drove Manson over the edge with anger. And the Manson-Dennis Wilson happy summer fun times was over. Manson and his family left Wilson's home. Then Wilson began receiving threats. One time, Manson walked up to Dennis Wilson and handed him a bullet. He handed him a bullet, and when Dennis asked, "What's this for?" Manson replied, quote, "It's a bullet. Every time you look at it, I want you to think how nice it is. Your kids are still safe," end quote. Considering the source, that's fucking terrifying.
Yeah. It's like when you go to a restaurant, you eat so much and you feel great, and then the check comes. That's like what that is for him.
Yeah.
But like on a bigger scale. Like,
Yeah.
This is what you paid. You're paying up now.
Exactly.
Reap what you sow.
Manson would leave notes at Wilson's home that said things like, "You'll never get away from me." Now, eventually, Manson and his followers tired of harassing Dennis Wilson, and they moved on. Bigger and better things, right?
Yeah.
But the damage to Wilson had been done. Overall, the Manson family wrecked Wilson's Mercedes and Ferrari, and wrecked his brother Brian Wilson's Ferrari, combined worth well over $1 million in today's money. Wilson was out over $100,000 in cash. They jacked up his credit cards, trashed his home. They even gave him gonorrhea. And for a while, like I said, Dennis was cool with everything, both because of his inherent good nature and the constant sex with Manson's women. But somewhere along the line, Brian Wilson had had enough. Some say that's
Dennis
why...
Wilson.
Oh, my God.
Sorry.
Dennis Wilson had enough. Some say that's why the Beach Boys screwed with Charlie's song, Cease to Exist. A little payback, maybe.
Wait, I thought the screw up led to the threats, or the other way around. Like he screwed with the song because he had enough of him, or
That's what some say. That they did it on purpose.
that seems like a murky little gray area there.
Yeah.
But no one knows for sure.
No one knows for sure.
Because
Why exactly?
Because when you were saying how the original title never ceased to exist,
Ceased
and
to
then
exist,
it became what was the title again? Never not to be
Never
loved.
Learn Not to Love.
Yeah, that's That sounds like such a gimmicky, like a corporate version of saying, no, let's make this more attainable for young kids or whatever. Let's change the title. It seems like one of those things, like constant rewrites and notes. Like, no, we should change it to, it sounds too morbid. Never cease to exist. Too deathy. Maybe change it to this. It seems like it would be that.
It could be, but that wasn't what Dennis Wilson promised Manson.
Right. No. Well, he what promises and what the studio or whatever record label wants. Maybe their hand was tied on that song that maybe the other Beach Boys, the other brothers, didn't give a shit about.
It certainly could be.
It could be a lot of things. It seems like a corporate thing. It
but
seems
Manson,
like
not a rational person.
No.
Right?
No, definitely.
So
I just was curious
way,
as to what.
this
I didn't
ends
expect
badly.
you to say that, is my point. I thought you were going to say that it was out of his hands, because it felt like one of those situations. Repackaging something as something completely different, and then people wonder why it failed, or whatever. Or maybe it would have failed anyway because maybe it was too out there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was just interesting. I didn't expect that.
Well, maybe it could have been studio, but changing the credit
Yeah.
didn't give Manson
No,
any
I
credit,
think that seems very much a purpose. Yeah.
Yes.
Credit is life to musicians and filmmakers and stuff. Credit's first thing everyone thinks of.
Yeah.
Subs and shit.
That's right.
Yeah.
So either it was a corporate thing or maybe it was a little payback. Either way, Dennis Wilson was never the same after his run-in with the Manson family, especially after what the Manson family did less than a year after leaving Wilson's home. In fact, in a Rolling Stones article, Dennis Wilson said he would never speak publicly about the time he spent with the Manson family back in '68. Ultimately, Wilson became sort of a recluse and a hardcore, heavy alcoholic and drug user.
Wow. He
Some
doubled
believe-
down on it, didn't he?
Yes, and
Fuck.
some believe because of his involvement with the Manson family. That's why he turned this way. Even when Manson was locked up for good, Wilson was afraid Manson would arrange his murder from prison. Dennis Wilson died at the age of just 39 years old, broke and homeless.
Yeah. What year was that?
Well, on
39.
December 28th, 1983,
83, wow.
Dennis Wilson spent the day drinking heavily.
A few weeks before I was born.
Is it really? Oh, yeah. So on that day, December 28th, 1983, Dennis Wilson spent the day drinking heavily on a boat at Marina Del Rey, along with some friends in California. Dennis began diving into the ocean. He found a silver frame that had once held his wedding picture, which he threw off his own yacht 3 years earlier when he and his ex-wife, Karen Lamb, had gotten a divorce. He found it. He dove some more, drank a lot more, and claimed he found a treasure at the bottom of the marina during one of his dives. He dove down again to try and retrieve the treasure, but this time he never came back up. And his body was found 30 minutes later and pronounced dead.
Yeah.
Fucked up for Dennis Wilson. Now, around August 1968, and after the Dennis Wilson fiasco, Manson and family settled briefly into a home next door to 3301 Waverly Drive in North Los Angeles, the home of Rosemary and Lino LaBianca. This will be important later. After living next to the LaBiancas for a short time, Manson and his followers then took over and settled into an old movie set called Spahn Ranch, or Spahn Movie Ranch.
This is where that movie we talked about earlier that's coming out this year is going to be taking place.
Yeah, it's Spahn Ranch.
Yes.
What's the name of that movie again?
Once Upon a Time in
Once Upon a
Hollywood.
Time, Tarantino's
Based on the...
based on all this.
No, I know, but based specifically, the reason I'm saying that is some of the shots in that trailer, but also the stunt man befriending.
Shorty Shea.
Yeah.
Oh, Shorty Shea's in here.
Yeah.
So they moved on to Spahn Movie Ranch, which was located in Simi Hills and the Santa Susana Mountains above Chatsworth, California. A 494-acre mountainous, boulder-strewn, river and cave-dotted relic left over from old Hollywood. And just a 30-minute ride from our old friend Laurel Canyon, by the way. Anyway, before Manson family took it over, Spahn Movie Ranch was used as a Western-style backdrop for movies made by Tom Mix, William S. Hart, and John Mack Brown. And parts of Howard Hughes' movie The Outlaw were shot there, as were episodes of the television shows Bonanza and The Lone Ranger, too.
But no sandpacking ball, huh?
When the Manson family moved on to Spahn Ranch, the property was owned by a nearly blind, lonely 80-year-old man named George Spahn. Spahn made all of his money back in the day when Westerns were a huge hit, as his property was the perfect backdrop for movie and television producers cashing in on the popularity of the Western cowboy theme.
Also, the idea of his property living in memory forevermore in movies, that must be a nice feeling.
Yeah, right?
Right? Yeah.
But the problem was, by the late 1960s, the Western craze had died down severely. Spahn Ranch fell into disrepair, and George Spahn made what little money he could renting out his 16 horses and however many mules to tourists and celebrities to go on scenic trail rides through his property.
Yep, that's the next step versus what makes it big, and then the cashing in on what made it big, right? Past tense, like
what made it,
right,
what made it
tourism stuff.
When the Manson family showed up, George Spahn was all too happy to let them live on his property rent-free in exchange for work on the ranch to help its upkeep. Old George loved the women Manson brought along, and after so long, Manson gave George Spahn Lynette Frum as sort of a house slave. Frum cooked for George, cleaned his house, and of course she fucked him.
Wow.
Actually, it was George Spahn that gave Lynette Frum her nickname Squeaky,
Really?
as that's the sound she made whenever George touched her. And George liked Charlie Manson. Manson would sit up at night and talk to the old-timer, telling him his visions of the world and spouting his psychobabble, and George, in turn, was happy to listen. Now, unbeknownst to George Spahn, however, is that Charles Manson had his own little spy in the form of Squeaky Fromm inside George's house. And Squeaky would overhear some interesting things being talked about inside George's home, mainly between George and a stuntman who also lived on the property named Donald Jerome Shorty Shea. And Shorty Shea hated Charles Manson, didn't trust him one bit. And we'll get into the brief Shorty Shea saga in the next episode. So this is where the Manson family called home for the better part of 1968 and 69, living inside musty trailers and broken down movie set buildings and tents. And things at Spahn Ranch didn't start out sinister. Things began to twist, but not initially. At first, the Manson family was this strange hippie group, but soon they turned into an army ready for war, something called Helter Skelter, which we'll cover in the next episode. The twisting began when Charlie started regularly dosing his followers with just the right amount of acid that Charlie wanted them to have. Then he would launch into his usual sermons, but his sermons started turning a little darker, saying that if his family followed him, unquestionably, they would live forever, grow wings, turn into fairies and sprites, be free, be free, be free. All they had to do was believe in him. And Manson began confiscating family members' personal items, too. Clothes, books, glasses, stuff like that. But do what I say and you'll live forever. Now here, take this hit of acid. Manson would also keep his family up to date on any racial killings that happened in L.A., and that was pretty much the only news he would allow them to hear, slowly baiting them to believe in his impending race war ideas, which again we'll cover in the next episode. Ultimately, Spahn Ranch burnt down in a wildfire in the 70s, and today the property is part of Santa Susana State Park. You wouldn't even know the ranch was ever there, or who lived there at one time. People still visit the site, though, mostly seekers of the strange, to catch a vibe from the location where the Manson family embarked for their nights of murder and mayhem. And that's where we'll conclude this episode on Charles Manson, and pick back up next episode with the Manson murders. What do you think?
Oh, it's good. I thought you were going farther than I thought. I'm like, oh, when are we stopping? Because I know they, I don't know when exactly they start, but I'm like, we're close. Yeah. But yeah, it's a good part. It's a good part to stop. It gives a nice setting.
Yeah. So
scenery.
I took you from when he was born to
Yeah.
his family to his prison life to after he got out of prison, started gaining followers, all the way up to
He's like three families. There is original, the prison life family, and then when he makes his own.
yeah.
I wish. Maybe it is impossible to know because who can trust whatever interviews might have happened, if there are any, of how or what keywords, phrases, or I know that was stuff he did to manipulate people to be a part of his family, but it would be interesting to know. I guess more specifics.
There's really no specifics.
Yeah.
It's all timing,
Mm-hmm.
the time in the what was going on in the world at the time.
Yeah.
The hippie movement, the break free from control of your parents, control of religion, control of politics and society. There was drugs,
Yeah.
and there was this guru movement happening at the same time.
Yeah.
He was just in the right place at the right time, and his prison background made him the perfect guru to follow.
It is like a perfect melting pot.
It really is.
You
It's
think
insane.
of when I was thinking of a movie called Contagion. Do you remember that movie? It's a Steven Soderbergh movie starring Gwyneth Paltrow and a bunch of actors.
Was Dennis Hoffman in that one?
No.
Oh, no, I'm thinking Outbreak.
Oh, you mean? Okay, no. Yeah, you think of Outbreak.
Okay.
Outbreak could be a good case, maybe, but Contagion specific. It's about this rampaging flu that starts eliminating population, like the population down. It's not everyone who has it. It's definitely not everybody, either not most of them or anything, but a good chunk of people have it, and everyone's running scared all over the world. Matt Damon's in it too, and in the movie is about how a freak set of events about this one person who got sick in China mixed with this fluke of a circumstance of this, what is it, like guano poop mixed with the pigs that ate it that became the meal of this woman.
Whoa.
Led to this horrible flu strain that took 3 years to solve or whatever in the movie.
Yeah.
And the idea that that's how easy we could all fucking die. It's like the right time, but wrong place, wrong time, whatever, right place, right time for this virus to come out. If this wasn't there, if the weather wasn't like that, if this wasn't like that, then none of this flu would exist.
Yeah.
And same thing here.
Absolutely.
With Manson,
100%.
and it reminded me of that.
It was just the perfect mixture for destruction.
It's like lightning in a bottle, but not in a positive way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah,
He's an interesting character.
Yeah.
He really is, and it gets even better.
because there's like plenty of people like him, even around today. So many people like him, even with similar backgrounds, even if not the same. You think of other institutionalized criminals. You think of they all have. There's a lot of individuals who have had the same feelings he's had, coming in and out of these people. They're either screwing him or he's screwing over. But like all of them in that way, and then with this decade, it does have a very serious period to the end of this decade because
Yeah.
of this guy.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the whole peace and love thing was completely squashed
Yeah,
by Manson.
yeah.
I mean, we're talking an entire decade. I would argue anything that happened during that decade was trumped by Manson. Anything.
Which is so funny. All
Vietnam,
the assassinations, you think of.
Yes.
Even the positive stuff. A lot of, like, the whole idea of peace and freedom and all that, the anti-establishment movement, which was born out of positive thinking. It wasn't born out of just renegadeness or whatever.
Yeah, don't forget, that's how Manson started. He
Yeah.
started peace and love. That's what he preached, but then it twisted. During the Spahn Ranch days, it twisted.
Yeah.
More drugs were involved.
And you talk about his sermons, which
he-
is another Bad Times at the El Royale. He has that sermon scene, too. It reminded me of that one.
Oh, that's right.
When you told me
Yeah.
that, by the way, he reminded me of that. I don't know if they were dropping acid in that scene, but I know it's just a movie, guys, but it reminds me of this. Clearly, the filmmakers read shit.
Oh, absolutely.
Clearly. And it's also like, it's an archetype. Like, it is now, spanning officially now 3 generations worth of history of this man. And he is still the blueprint for this kind of insanity.
Yes.
And this kind of the potential of what worse he could have done had he been 20 points IQ higher, or if he had been or if he got unlucky, or if he got lucky instead of unlucky at this turn. Can you imagine how much farther? It's not only that it happened, like how much farther or worse could it have been?
That's right.
Right.
It's bad, horrible. It could have been worse.
Could have taken down the Hollywood system in a way, like bad, like in a bad image kind of way. You think of that too?
So for the third episode, when we start talking about conspiracies and things, there's stuff there about Hollywood and politicians.
Yeah, I'm saying is that this is such the history made this guy.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like he had no choice in his own life because of how much shit happened and the impact of it. It seems like he had no choice. Like it's like the universe is indifferent about whether something is good or bad. It just makes up these figures, and like good or bad, it's going to be a figure now. We'll see, and it's bad in this case. Like it's one of those, He's like the Joan of Arc, but the opposite.
Yeah,
or John Luther or something. Like he's that. Like that crazy of that era.
Absolutely. So. Well, wait till we get into the murders. The murders are coming up next.
Yes.
2 weeks, listeners.
And I know more about these murders more than actually because I told you about these podcasts I've listened to before we even started the show.
Yes.
Yes. I've known about some of this stuff. Manson is one that I'm familiar with, unlike most of our other subjects.
Good. Then feel free to chime in anytime you want on the next episode.
I'll probably be like, oh, shit, I remember. Like, I'll probably be things like that.
Good.
But, yeah, for sure. I read a lot of Roman Polanski stuff, too, so I know a lot about that.
Yeah, Roman Polanski, definitely.
Because he's one of my favorite directors. So, anyway, we'll see you then.
See you then. Oscar, take us home.
Let's do. All right. 27, 26, 25, 24, 24, 24, 24.
Oscar's going to hate me. Recording again. Oh. I sound so nasally. I hate it. Oh.
I feel like everybody hates the sound of their own voice, right?
Man, I can't stand it.
I'm a Scorpio with a Leo moon and a Leo ascending sign.
And what does that mean?
That I'm all kinds of fucked up.
That means watch out. Oscar's going to hate me. Why am I nervous all of a sudden?
Well, you're nervous. This is the first time I've ever been on a podcast. You should be a pro by now, right? You should got this.
The hardest thing for me is starting. Every single episode. Every episode, I freak out about starting the show. I don't know what it is. Even in my day job, what I do day in and day out. But every time I go to begin, I'm petrified.
Jesus, how much did you drink before I got here?
This is my piece de la resistance, and I'm de resistance. There's no la.
Did you say pizzadilla?
Piece de resistance. This is ooh, yeah. Yes.
Everyone shut up. This is terrible.
Oscar's going to hate me. Listeners, I'd like to welcome to the podcast our new... Yeah, see? I can't start.
It's hard. No, you're good.
Why is this ridiculous?
The more you get like this, the more I'm going to get freaked out. This is going to take forever. Okay.
I know. Okay. Listeners, I would like to welcome to the show the newest member of the Supernatural Current Studies podcast, our brand new research assistant, Miss Jessica Saline. Jessica, say hello to our loyal listeners.
Hello to everybody out there, all SOS podcast listening fans. It's really great to be here.
Thank you. We're excited to have you as part of the crew. Being a journalist, and I'll let you sort of read your resume as oh fuck. Oscar's gonna hate me.
Not right now, I mean, but in a few seconds, yes. So where was I? 20, 19,
Yes.
18, 5, 4, 3, 2,